Autumn, a bonfire of leaves. Morning peels us towards pomegranate festivals. And in the evening I bring you soup, cooled by my laughter. Sonia Sanchez. Among rocks, I am the loose one. Among arrows, I am the heart. Among daughters, I am the recluse. Among sons, the one who dies young. Among answers, I am the question. Between lovers, I am the sword. Among scars, I am the fresh wound. Among confetti, the black flag. Among shoes, I am the one with the pebble. Among days, the one who never comes. Among the bones you find on the beach, the one that sings was mine. Liesel Müller. It rained in my sleep. And in the morning the fields were wet. I dreamed of artillery, of the thunder of horses. In the morning the fields were strewn with twigs and leaves. As if after a battle or a sudden journey. I went to sleep in summer, I dreamed of rain. In the morning the fields were wet, and it was autumn. Linda Paston. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them and take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be in your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you. Charles Bukowski. daisies are running under an umbrella of French fries. Into the mud, through the bush. Exhales screaming on a plate of asthma. Discourse fills the soup. I am a paycheck. I've washed away my sins. Or I can blow so hard out of my whale blowhole that I eat my fingers like popcorn. I'm dishonest yet above board. I'm a wacko. I can dish it out, and yet I'm a widow. I'm fatherless. Pliant aesthetic. Hail to you. Noel Cocotte. Part of Eve's discussion. It was like the moment when a bird decides not to eat from your hand and flies. Just before it flies, the moment the rivers seems to still and stop because a storm is coming. But there's no storm, as when 100 starlings lift and bank together before they wheel and drop. Very much like the moment driving on bad ice, when it occurs to you that your car could spin just before it slowly begins to spin, like the moment just before you forgot what it was like, what you were about to say. It was like that. It was like that, but now only all the time. Going home. Was the middle of the day. Early September, light skirting from under the leaves. I was taking the compost to the edge of the yard where I saw you pinching a pot on the old bench near the bird bath we lugged from Albany. Mira was lying in the grass, sun closing her eyes. Something in the quiet light made me realize that we were, now, in the moment, this moment, all we had hoped for. I put the can down and sat next to you, watched your hands shape the clay. I wanted to run my fingers through your hair. A small cloud bowed, and the sun warmed my hand on your knee. Mark Nepo. I don't want you to see the room. I don't want you to see my hands. I don't want you to see the light that is yellow and gray. I don't want you to know what's manipulating the future and the present and the now. The green whispers of small frogs land inside your eardrum. The green whispers of inside small frogs, your eardrum, inside. The green whispers of inside small frogs, your eardrum, inside.
Poetry for small frogs. 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 Poetry for small frogs.
Our dreams are small frogs. Our dreams are small frogs. Ah! I ran the poem through the insignificant webbed feet of that small, so small frog dream.
Poetry is not a luxury. It's not a luxury. Poetry is 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 not a luxury.
Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. The small green frog is a poet. The small green frog is a poet. The small green frog is a poet. The small green frog is a poet.
Poetry is not a luxury.
The small green frog is not a luxury. Small green frog is a poet. Small green frog is not a luxury.
Small green frog is luxury. Writing poetry. Writing poetry. Writing poetry. Writing poetry.
Small green frog is writing poetry. The small green frog is writing poetry.
Writing poetry.
And he does not consider it a luxury.
Writing poetry.
The small green frog is writing poetry and he does not consider it to be a luxury. He considers it to be vital. Vital, I tell you. Vital. Vital.
Poetry is not a luxury.
Vital.
Poetry is not a luxury.
It is vital. 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 Vital.
Not a luxury.
It is vital to the life of small green frogs. It is vital to the survival of small green frogs.
Small green frog. Poetry is not a luxury. Small green
It is vital to the poetry of small green frogs.
Poetry is not a luxury.
Poetry is not a luxury. Small green frogs are not a luxury. It is vital to the poetry of small green frogs. Poetry is vital to the life of small green frogs.
Small green frog writes poetry. Small green frog writes poetry. Does not think of luxury. Does not think of luxury. Writing poetry. The small green frog. Small green frog.
It's a Saturday morning,
frog.
and a small green frog is writing poetry.
Small green frog.
It's vital to his lily pad. While he writes poetry, the sun
Small green frog.
opens the crusty cloud cover that has taken over.
Small green frog. Poetry is not a luxury. 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 It's not a luxury.
Poetry is not a luxury.
A small green frog writes poetry. It's not a luxury. Poetry is bones. Poetry is flesh. Poetry is bones. Poetry is flesh. Poetry is bones. Poetry is flesh.
The white bones of a small green frog were found on the edge of a muddy territory in the Yucatan Peninsula. There hadn't been any life there for years. So scientists, quite surprised, wondered how the small green frog had managed to get there, live there, and die there. Small green frog had managed to get there, live there, and die there.
Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury.
Small green frog.
Writes poetry.
Small green frog. Small green frog makes paintings, poetry. Small green frog.
Poetry is not a luxury.
Poetry and pancakes and pickles and peas. Small green frog.
Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury.
Small green frog is not a luxury. Small poetry, small green poetry is not a luxury. Small green frogs are not a luxury.
Green frogs are not a luxury. Writing small poetry. Poetry green in frogs. Green frogs in poetry.
Hearing green frogs recite poetry is not a luxury.
Luxury not
a
poetry
luxury.
frogs.
Poetry is
Poetry
not a
frogs.
luxury.
Sketching poetry frogs. Luxury. Green poetry. Frogs green poetry. Poetry green. Green poetry. Green poetry. Luxury. Green poetry. Luxury. Green poetry. Frogs. Frogs. Green poetry. Frogs. Green poetry.
Poetry is
Frogs.
not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury.
Green frog. Poetry is not a luxury. Bones
Frogs.
and flesh. Bones and flesh.
Frogs.
Bones and flesh.
Frogs.
Bones
Frogs.
and flesh.
Flesh
Bones
and blood and
flesh.
bones and frogs and white bones and Yucatan peninsula.
And flesh. Bones.
Flesh.
Visceral
Flesh and
poetry.
bones.
Visceral poetry.
Bones.
Visceral poetry.
Flesh.
Visceral poetry. Bones.
Fleshly.
Bones.
Fleshing it out.
Bones. Flesh. Bones.
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 The poet
Luxury.
laureate.
Poetry. Bones. Flesh.
The poet laureate.
Poetry.
The laureate of poetry.
Bones. Flesh.
The laureate of poetry. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not. Poetry is not luxury. Poetry is not. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry is not a luxury. Poetry, 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 poetry. Small green frogs lay quietly, waiting, just waiting. Yes, it could happen anytime, tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or love, or sunshine, salvation. It could, you know. That's why we wake up and look out. No guarantees in this life. But some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. Yes, it could happen anytime now. Tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, you know, that's why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life. But some bonuses. Like morning, like right now, like noon, like you could, you know, that's why we out. Yes, 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 absolutely, yes, yes. It could happen. Yes, yes, yes.